Jeremy, and I have to say I'm really actually intimidated to be speaking here. I'm an interloper among you, and I'm so thankful for Doug calling and inviting me to come, and Whitney following that up and promising to be nice to me while I was here. No, that's the wrong thing to say. Promising to be my buddy while I was here, because I was like, I won't know anybody. So anyway, so I feel intimidated speaking to you because I know that everybody here could do an amazing job of defending Joseph Smith. I am so thankful for the work that Whitney and Jeremy have done, and I'm so thankful that they are joining me in my efforts. The next 2 weeks, you'll get to hear from them again on my podcast, and the next week will be Jeremy, and then will be Whitney defending Joseph Smith and his family, which I am passionate about. Jeremy's right that I started my podcast defending God, because that's who's really on trial in this issue. God from top to bottom. Who is God? Is God a monster who does these things, who speaks this way about women, who does not care about women and does not see them as independent agents whose feelings and experiences matter? Or is God somebody who we as men and as women experience, who we know loves us, who we know is in every moment in our lives? That's where I started, was trying to understand who God was, then trying to help other people understand who God is, because a false understanding of God, as we learn in the lectures of faith, false understanding of God destroys faith. And for those whose faith it doesn't destroy, it twists it. It twists them into becoming people living in the image of the God that they imagine, the false God of the doctrine of having many wives and concubines, right? That is not God. And so people who have faith in that God start to take that God into their image and start to have that God in their countenance, which is not good. And people who know the real God reject that version of God and maybe reject God completely. So these things matter immensely, maybe more than, well, when we're talking about God in Mormonism, I can't think of anything more important, because we have to understand this issue correctly, and it leads into every other issue. This is the gateway drug into truth, right? And so as I got started, I'm sorry I'm feeling emotional. It's been heavy. So forgive me. I hope I'm safe to cry here, because I sometimes get beaten down even for showing emotion. But as I continued my study of God, intending to leave aside the question of Joseph Smith for a variety of reasons, not the least of which that it was hard. Understanding the history of Joseph Smith is overwhelming. It feels impossible. But as I continued, I realized that I couldn't leave it alone, because the question of Joseph Smith reflects directly on the question of God, because now we have these explanations that prophets can, they're just guys, and God chooses to use them. I'm sorry, it's not just a guy who is a sexual pervert, who manipulates teenagers, who does the kinds of things that we accuse Joseph Smith of doing and then saying, God can use anyone. No, if I am Emma Smith and this is what my husband is doing, and God is using this man as a prophet, then God does not care about me. God is the false God of many wives and concubines. And so, you guys are so much more fun than sacrament meeting. So, as I studied, some things became abundantly clear. I don't know if Joseph Smith was perfect. I know he wasn't perfect. Thank you, you're so sweet. As Jeremy said, how many times did Joseph Smith publicly print his being called to repentance? That is a remarkable man that does that. And I know these things. Joseph Smith was sincere, Joseph was selfless, and Joseph was faithful. Those three things I know about Joseph Smith. Joseph was faithful to God And Joseph was faithful to Emma, because the true God, you cannot be faithful to the true God without also being faithful to your wife. It is the false God of many wives and concubines that teaches that men have to choose. At the risk of God sent an armed angel threatening to behead Joseph if he did not betray his wife. Are you freaking kidding me? Will you tell me how much time? Oh, yay, okay. And so, what we have done, a faithful man cares about his family. The way that Joseph Smith felt about Emma. We tell this story. You know, I was raised on the story that on Brigham's deathbed, he said, Joseph, 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 copying what Emma said. You know, who knows what the Victorian tales were. I believed that story. And a little later on, after I'd studied more, I had a different picture in mind. That Brigham was on his deathbed going, Joseph, 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 right? Because he had to face the man whose wife he had treated the way he treated Emma. Joseph Smith and Emma Smith side by side as equal partners in every possible way. Joseph could not accomplish what he did without Emma. He needed Emma with him to get the plates from the very beginning. God told Joseph he could only get the plates if he brought the right person with him. Who was the right person? It was his partner that God established, just as he established Adam and Eve, just as he established Noah and his wife, just as he established Lehi and Sariah, and established the perfect amount of women. You can read in the Book of Mormon. Polygamy makes you stupid. People who sit and say that Lehi was a polygamist and it's ridiculous. God established Emma and Joseph as equal partners, and the way that Joseph honored Emma is profound and is a lesson to all of us. And the way that Emma honored Joseph, the sacrifice that each of them made hand in hand together, facing unbelievable challenges throughout their lives. And never did either of them turn bitter toward God or their fellow man. And I'm telling you, if anyone had a reason to, we're always taught that whatever we experience in life, Jesus knows, right? We're never alone. And I don't want to in any way demean Jesus, because that's true, but I'll tell you, whatever we experience in life, Joseph and Emma experienced. And they continued on in faith in God and goodness and love and faith in their fellow man, especially Emma, after what she experienced. Losing child after child, losing home after home, sleeping on the floor because there were so many sick she was caring for that she had to tell her own sick children, I'm sorry, you're not the only one I have to care for. Giving up every bed where they were living, doing everything constantly. What that woman sacrificed for this restoration is profound. And then, after her husband was murdered, she could not even grieve. This pregnant mother could not even grieve without immediately having to go into defense mode, trying to protect her family from what these men were trying to do to her. It is unthinkable. It is unthinkable what these men did to the family of this faithful founding prophet. They not only defamed him, defamed his name, possibly killed him, and then did this to his family, and then continued on to defame him and her for centuries. And this is what we still have. I am so thankful to be among those called to try to undo what has been done, to try to redeem These people who did so much for us. It is an incredible story that we have. On the one hand, I had just a couple of notes that I wrote. The stories that we are supposed to believe, right? We have two sides that believe the exact same thing. I'm always trying to set up conversations, and when people want to debate, which is, I just don't love debate. I'm willing to do it. I like it, but this topic is frustrating. But as I was thinking about debate teams, and I was like, okay, on my side, there would be me, or Jeremy or Whitney or any of you, right? And then maybe someone from the restoration branches that broke off from the RLDS church when they went Community of Christ, when they went liberal. And then maybe somebody who, what's the other group that's along with us? I'm drawing a blank. But someone else that, that was what it was. Me, a faithful member of the church who believes that Joseph was innocent. Someone from the restoration branches, then one of you all, someone who's maybe left the church and is defending Joseph Smith on this side. That would be this team. On the other side, what would we have? A devout, faithful Latter-day Saint sitting next to a man with his 10 wives, sitting next to the most anti-Mormon, Joseph-hating, like Grant Palmer, someone like that. That is who, and they all cite exactly the same sources to tell exactly the same story, not because they're the only sources, not because they're the best sources, just because they are the sources that tell the story that they want told. And they accuse us of cherry picking. I'm sorry, no. And so, in that version of Joseph Smith, we get to choose. Either, according to the anti-Mormons, Joseph Smith was an absolute monster, right? Joseph Smith was, we don't even have words for the lustfulness that the con man with a roving eye that really had a thing for teenagers, and apparently 50-year-old women as well, right? This is who the Joseph Smith was. He was this power-hungry man. So that's the one version that is in complete agreement on sources with this other version where, no, Joseph Smith was a good guy, but in that version, God is a monster and Emma Smith was a monster. That's what we have. Joseph was just trying to do what God wanted him to do, and his darn wife just couldn't get with the program. So, as Brian Hales said to me, she was at the point where God had to use strong language, threatening her with destruction if she couldn't get behind her husband's consistent adultery with the girls that she brought into her home and was mothering and training in her arts and raising up as her own, with all of her best friends in the Relief Society, who Joseph who Joseph sustained her as the president of and told the women to support her. That is the version that we have to believe. I say no, 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 no. The truth is God is good. God is great. God is wise and God is loving and God values and honors women and men. God established the marriage covenant. God establishes marriage and God sustains and honors marriage and expects his servants to as well. That is who God is. Joseph Smith was a faithful man who was faithful to God and faithful to his wife because God would never ask him to choose. That is the truth. And knowing that is essential. It is essential to our faith. It is essential to our ability to continue to do what we are called to do. We have to know the truth. And I cannot leave out Emma was a freaking awesome woman who did never want her husband killed, never tried to kill him, never was jealous and weak, and Emma was amazing. And if anyone wants to say otherwise, they better come through me. Thank you.